But that's not all. Orange Liberia provides a very easy way out for you to self-check your status. Dial star 5434 hash to validate your SIM registration free of charge. We take pride in bringing you closer to what matters the most.
Orange.
And I tell you, this is Kim TV. We are everywhere. That's why we are right here. Sounds like coming from the grounds of the Capitol building. My name is Cyrus McGee. I'm connecting via the power of technology right here from the state of Minnesota. The team is right there, KMTV Liberia. Together, we are bringing you this State of the Nation address of President George Manneh Weah. Is his fifth. His first was in 2018. Just after his inauguration, he delivered his first, and today is his fifth. This address will be very critical with the fact that it's coming at a time when the country is gearing up for election year, which is next year. Next year, when President Weah addressed the nation from this ground, it's going to be something that will be bad because it's going to be an election year. But this is where people will start to critique the president to know what has he done over the last 5 years of presenting messages to his people from the grounds of the Capitol. Constitutionally, Article 58 gives him this constitutional responsibility when members of both the House of Representatives and the House of Senate converge in a joint section to give an opportunity to speak to his people. They are the people's representative. This is about them. This is about what they do, and I'm sure they are prepared to listen. Earlier on, I had with me my common colleague, Julius Kanuma, who once served as the Legislative Press Pool President. And I'm hoping that Julius can come back, and in few minutes we will have the Sergeant at Arms of the House of Representatives and the Liberian Senate also in the president, which will be at 3:45 Liberian time, and with between 3:45 to 4 o'clock, President Weah will appear in the John Chambers, where a special session will be in full swing called by the House of Representatives House Speaker Dr. Buffer's chambers. When these two branches, wings of the legislature, that is the Senate, the House of Representatives, converge in this John chamber, it is now in the possession of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. If the Speaker is not available, the Deputy Speaker will. If the Deputy Speaker is not available, the House Committee Chair on Executive, which is the third in line, which is responsible, for this kind of a sitting, will preside. But with the fact that Dr. Chambers is there, he's going to be presiding over the presentation by the president. And as you can see from the room, members of the diplomatic corps are there, members of the Liberian Senate, members of the House of Representatives, they are all in attendance. Other guest dignitaries are also there. On the podium, the left flank of the podium will be seated members of the executive, those that were appointed by President Weah. Right behind the president, we expect to see the speaker, the president pro tempore, and the vice president of the Republic of Liberia. They are already in. On the right flank will be the first lady and members of the Supreme Court, headed by the Chief Justice. All the justices, all the dignitaries will also be there. And as we speak, the grounds of the Capitol, tough security measures in place. There was a brief, as you can see, the speaker and the vice president ready for business. Speaker Chambers and Vice President Chief Dr. Joel Howard Taylor, they're there ready for business. That is one day that both of them will have to sit together, making sure they can give the president the space to present. There you see the Chief Justice Francis Kokpo and members of the Supreme Court of Liberia. They are right there. I don't know whether the former president Johnson Sirleaf, that's the corner where, I mean, the area where she's also going to be seated. She's in attendance. Other former officials, I believe, are also in attendance. I don't know whether members of the opposition community or the political leaders or the chairman of political parties are in attendance. They are also going to be sitting there amongst the guests. And Zach, if Zach is there, we will bring Zach on to just fill us in with what the room looks like already. If you can listen to the sound in the background, sound from the armed forces of Liberia, the AFL marching band, and like we said earlier on, the COVID measure is seriously taken into consideration. As you can see, everyone in there is wearing a face mask, and that's a part of look, that's the chairman of the ruling coalition for democratic change, Bob Amolu, right
Mr.
there.
Sergeant Arms, we
As you can
call
see
the
them.
session to order.
So we will now go off and say to our team in on the grounds of the Capitol building, take controls. Like we understand, the speaker is now calling this session to order. My name is Cyrus McGee. I'm going to be back here as we go through to wrap up after the president message to his people. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep watching KMTV. We are everywhere.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, Vice President, and members of the 54th Legislative Republic of Liberia. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to announce to you the opening of the 5th joint session of the 54th Legislature of the Republic of Liberia for the purpose of the President of the Republic of Liberia to deliver his 5th annual message to the legislature. And now, therefore, this joint session is hereby called to order, and it is hereby so ordered.
And Jella, you and Sir George will just need to be on pause because we will rejoin you as soon as the presidents get within the vicinity of the legislature. This is 99.9, and the sergeant at arms of the House, of the Honorable House of Representatives, has announced, and so it is like 5 minutes. So the speaker will now
We will entertain a motion for the legislature to convene into a joint session. We would like to entertain a motion. Honorable Zaza of Sino County.
So Honorable Zaza has been asked to do the motion, and we have asked now to see whether they can make a vote.
Honorable Dr. Bofo Chambers, Speaker of the House of Representatives and presiding officer of this joint legislative section, Her Excellency Chief Dr. Joel Howard Taylor, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia and President of the Senate, Honorable Albert Chair, President Pro Tempore of the Liberian Senate, Honorable Councilor Yudinto Fonati Kofa, Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, distinguished colleagues of the Liberian Legislature, I, Matthew G. Zaza, representative of District Number 3, Sino County, move, if I can obtain your second, that this legislature convenes into a joint legislative session for the sole purpose of receiving the President of the Republic of Liberia, Dr. George Manneh Weah, Sr., to deliver his annual message, his fifth annual message to the Liberian people in fulfillment of Article 58 of the Constitution. I say, if I can obtain your motion. Second motion.
We will now entertain an individual to second this motion. Honorable Prince Moi of Bone County.
So Senator Moy.
Honorable Speaker, Madam President of the Senate, Honorable Deputy Speaker, Mr. President Pro Tempore of the Liberian Senate, distinguished members of the 54th Legislature, I, Senator Prince Kemu Moi of Bone County, do hereby second the motion.
And so he has been seconded.
Thank you very much. Honorable distinguished colleagues, without restating the motion, are you ready to vote? All those in favor make it known by saying yea. Against? Madam Chief Clerk, with the motion being made and we have now convened for this purpose and process, can you now state as to the quorum threshold, whether it has been met?
Honorable Dr. Bofo Chambers, Speaker of the House of Representatives and presiding officer of this joint legislative section, Her Excellency Chief Joel Howard Taylor, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia and President of the Liberian Senate, Honorable Albert T. Chie, President Pro Tempore of the Liberian Senate, Honorable Deputy Speaker Councilor J. Fonati Kofa, honorable ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to announce to you that record from the Secretariat of both houses of this legislature show that there is a quorum for the transaction of this joint legislative business for the singular purpose of receiving His Excellency Dr. George Manneh Weah Sr. to deliver to the Liberian people through this body his fifth annual message. I so submit.
Thank you very much. With that said, we are now stationed to proceed with the other formalities. So will the Joint Committee on Executive of the both houses, along with the Sergeant at Arms, proceed to escort the President in this joint chambers?
To have the president convene his annual message or his State of the Nation address. In place. So let's now leave the main chamber and join General Griffith and Secretary where have a clever picture of what is Once you are ready for control, you can take control to give us a clever picture of what it looks members of the joint chamber just left.
want to. Still want to. Mr. Speaker and members of the 54th Legislature, I am honored at this time to announce to you the arrival of the President of the Republic of Liberia.
And the president is before.
Madam Manneh Weah, First Lady of the Republic of Liberia, Madam Vice President and President of the Senate, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President pro tempore, members of the 54th Legislature, the Honorable Chief Justice, Associate Justices of the Supreme Court, and members of the Judiciary, the Dean and members of the Cabinet and other government officials, the Doyen Excellencies and members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, His Excellency, the Special Representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations in Liberia, the Chief of Staff and men and women of the Armed Forces of Liberia, former officials of government, traditional leaders, chiefs and elders, political and business leaders, religious leaders, officials and members of the National Bar Association, Labor and Trade Union, civil society organizations, members of the Folk Estate, special guests, fellow Liberians, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I stand before you today in fulfillment of a duty in accordance with Article 58 of the Constitution of Liberia, which mandates that the President of Liberia on the fourth working Monday in January of each year is to present the legislative program of the administration for the ensuing section and report on the state of the Republic, covering the economic conditions of the nation, including expenditure and income. Madam Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President pro tempore, members of the 54th Legislature, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. With deep regret and profound sorrow, it is my duty to inform you of a major national tragedy which befell our country on last week, Wednesday night, January 19, 2020, in which 29 Liberians died and many more were wounded in the stampede which occurred during a religious crusade in New Town on Bourgeois Island in Monrovia. I'm informed by the authorities that those who died included 18 adults, 16 females, including one pregnant woman, and 2 males and 11 children, 6 girls and 5 boys. Of the 15 persons who were seriously wounded, there were 7 children and 8 adults. May I now ask you to rise on your feet and remain standing in remembrance, respect, and honor for those who have lost their lives in the terrible disaster. I have declared a 3-day state of national mourning, and I have ordered that the national anthem be flown at half-mast at all public buildings throughout the Republic while the nation mourns. I have also mandated the Liberian National Police to conduct a full-scale, thorough, and speedy investigation to ascertain whether or not there is criminal culpability, and I have met with the religious leaders and pastors of the Christian community to discuss ways to safeguard their congregation at mass events such as rallies, crusades, in order to prevent the reoccurrence of this tragedy. I have also called on the health authorities, including Liberian National Red Cross and the Disaster Management Agency, to assist with treatment and recovery efforts. I have personally visited the scene of the disaster and met with some of the survivors. I have also led an array of officials of government to visit the wounded in hospital. Let us now convey our deepest sympathies to the families of the bereaved, while expressing our gratitude to all those who provided help to the victims in the immediate aftermath of the stampede. It is worthy to note that the government has received dozens of messages of sympathy and condolences from the leaders and government of many countries and international organizations, all of whom have expressed their solidarity with Liberia in our time of grief. In return, other countries which have recently experienced similar disaster, especially those in our sub-region, have received messages of sympathy and condolences from our government. I now call upon you to observe a moment of silence for all those who lost their lives in this unspeakable tragedy. Thank you. May their souls and the souls of all the faithful departed rest in perfect peace, and may light perpetual shine upon them. In Jesus' name. Madam Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Pro Tempore, and members of the 54th Legislature, let me now welcome you back for your annual recess as we begin this fifth session of constructive dialogue and deliberation in the supreme interest of the Liberian people. I would also like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to this honorable body for your constant and consistent support to our legislative program. I look forward to working with you during the fifth session in the usual spirit of collaboration and cooperation that we have always enjoyed. During the period under review, our collaborative efforts have resulted in your passage and subsequent approval by me of 23 pieces of legislation, which include financing agreements, creation of regional universities, and ratifications of international instruments, among others. These laws, most especially the financing agreement, have important implications for the growth and development of the Liberian economy. While I applaud you for your hard work, I want to respectfully remind you that there are still 35 pieces of legislation which are pending before you. 8 of them from your third session of 2020, and 27 of them from your fourth session of 2021. Many of these proposed laws have important significance to strengthen our governance and judicial systems, as well as our relationship within our sub-region. Others, when enacted by you, will help to ensure and secure financial transactions in support of our monetary and fiscal policies, and will help to prevent our country from being a conduit of illicit financial transactions, money laundering, and terrorist financing. Taken together, these pending bills constitute a major proportion of our legislative agenda for the ensuing year. Although we will be submitting new bills during this fifth session for your further consideration. In the interest of time, a detailed list of the 23 bills passed during your fourth session, together with the 35 pending bills presently before you, as well as the 3 executive orders signed by me during the period under review, are attached as an appendix to the annual message. Honorable members of the 54th Legislature, we are counting on you to consider the expeditious passage of these pending bills, as well as other new bills which we will be submitting to you for your timely consideration during the fifth section. It is our fervent hope that we will continue to work together collaboratively in the best interests of the Liberian people to timelessly execute our constitutional duty. Mr. Speaker, 200 years ago, some of our forebears returned to our shores after enduring 4 centuries of bondage in slavery and helped to found the Republic of Liberia. As I said during my remarks at the kick-off program held this month on Providence Island to commemorate the day that the settlers landed here, we must redouble our efforts to promote unity amongst all Liberians worldwide and encourage all to make meaningful contributions to the nation-building tasks of our country. For in union strong, success is sure. We cannot fail. We therefore would like to commend the Honorable Supreme Court for its opinion handed down on the 23rd of December 2019, which found that certain provisions of the alien and nationality laws are inconsistent with the Constitution of Liberia. For instance, the current alien and nationality law provides that a natural-born Liberian citizen automatically loses his or her citizenship without any due process of law in the court in Liberia upon taking up citizenship of another country or acting in some capacity for that country. These laws undermines our quest for unity amongst all Liberians everywhere. Therefore, as we celebrate the bicentennial anniversary of the founding of our country, I want to call on the honorable members of the 54th legislature, in particular, the Liberian Senate, to consider passage of the bill currently before you, which seek to codify the opinion of the Honorable Supreme Court and make it more true that once a Liberian, always a Liberian. Madam Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Pro Tempore, and members of the 54th legislature, our Constitution places upon me the solemn responsibility to report on the state of the Republic with specific mentions of public expenditure and national income. Revenue collection for 2021, including grants, was $646 million United States dollars compared to $653.9 million United States dollars in 2020. This apparent decrease is attributable to more international COVID-related funding that was received in calendar year 2020. This revenue performance was driven by high receipt of tax and non-tax revenues, especially taxes on international trade. Of this amount, domestic taxes was $577 million US dollars, and external resources received from our development partner was $68 million United States dollars. The last fiscal year recorded the highest level of domestic revenue performance since the end of the civil conflict. We are all encouraged and challenged to sustain this effort. On the other hand, total cash expenditure for the same period under review was $668 million United States dollars. Of this amount, 44% was spent on compensation of government employees, 25% of goods and services, 17% on domestic and international debt, and 5% on public sector investment. Mr. Speaker, for at least the last 5 decades, Liberia has had a fiscal year that runs from July 1st to June 30. Liberia has been the only country in the ECOWAS sub-region that has run this fiscal year, which is out of alignment with the rest of the countries in the region. We have been encouraged by ECOWAS for nearly 2 decades now, since the end of the Civil War, to revise our fiscal calendar. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to report that a change has finally taken place in the year 2020. And the year 2022 will be the first fiscal year that is also a calendar year for the national budget and other instruments and processes of the government. Mr. Speaker, to facilitate this transition, we had to enact a special transitional budget which you approved at $347.9 million United States dollars in the year under review. December 31st, 2021 concluded this transitional budget, which was funded exclusively by domestic revenue, and the draft national budget is presently before the House of Senate for consideration, having been passed by the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker and members of the 54th Legislature, the 2022 budget was passed by the House at $785.6 million US dollars. This is the largest national budget in the history of Liberia, and with the support of the National Legislature, we hope to make it the most transformative one. Domestic revenue is projected at $640.5 million US dollars, or 81.5%, while external resources are projected at $145 million US dollars, or 18.5%. We have increased capital spending in the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget. In response to the need for more development, we are putting more resources to solving the many development challenges confronting our people in various sectors. These capital investments will cover roads, electricity, education, national security, health, water and sanitation, transport, and several other sectors. I am thankful that the House of Representatives approved $10 million US dollars for Project Honor the County Tour that I undertook in the year under review. These county tour projects will bring serious relief to many of our people, especially those in the rural area. Mr. Speaker, it is very clear that the success of this budget depends on strong revenue measures. It depends on all citizens paying their lawful taxes and doing so in a timely manner. In this regard, the government in 2022 will support even more vigorously the domestic resource mobilization strategy of the Liberian Revenue Authority. Government, through the LPRA, has launched a program to keep 50% of all real estate taxes collected back to the counties, districts, and cities where the real estate taxes are collected. This is a measure to boost real estate taxes by involving local communities and their residents, as well as ensure that part of the money stay at the local level in keeping with the decentralization law that was recently passed under my administration. The program is being piloted in Margibi County. Mr. Speaker, we are working with the national legislature to limit tax waiver or tax expenditure, which in the last 3 years alone have cost us more than 300 million United States dollars. While duty-free privileges and incentives are important to spur development, I believe that as a country, we have been too generous with these instruments and must now begin to take more conservative approach. Mr. Speaker, we have made significant progress in restructuring our domestic debt. All legacy debts owed the Central Bank of Liberia, including the debt owed to the former National Bank of Liberia, were bundled into a restructured and consolidated loan at the start of the IMF supported program 2 years ago. This restructured loan total $487.5 million United States dollars. The government paid an annual interest of 13.9 million US dollar to the Central Bank of Liberia on this loan, and will start to pay principal in the year 2030. The total stock of domestic debts now stands at 660 million United States dollars, and the total stock of external debt now stands at approximately 1.03 billion United States dollars, for a total public debt stock value at 1.69 billion US dollars as at December 31st, 2020-2021. The total debt stock grew by 6.29% compared to end December 2020 debt stock of $1.59 billion. And this growth was from disbursement on both external and domestic loans. On both domestic and external debt, the government paid the amount of 83.4 million US dollar in debt service. Of this amount, 62.8 million United States dollar was paid for domestic debt to the Central Bank of Liberia, to commercial banks for treasury bonds, and to other institutions, while 20.6 million US dollar was paid to multilateral and bilateral partners. The treasury bond, which were issued by the previous government in 2013, are costing the government more than 6 million US dollar in interest annually, just to roll them over to the next period. This is a legacy debt which my administration inherited. However, in the interest of continuity of government, it is an obligation that we have to pay. Therefore, I am pleased to inform you that working with the IMF, we have allocated 35 million US dollars to completely redeem these very expensive treasury bonds. This will free up space for investment in education, healthcare, and other important priority areas. Mr. Speaker, we are almost at the point where the audit of the consolidated revenue accounts will be current up to any fiscal year. In 2018, my administration inherited an audit backlog dating back to the 2015, 2016, and 2016-2017 national budget. We have worked overtime to conduct these audits and make current the audits of the consolidated revenue accounts. With the completion of the fiscal year 2019-2020 audit, we are making good progress. The General Auditing Commission is presently conducting an independent payroll audit funded by the World Bank and is developing a new framework to ensure better audits and financial reporting that is consistent with the public financial management law. Mr. Speaker, we must continue to show strong gains in the fight against corruption, money laundering, and illicit financial flows. The government is strengthening and empowering the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission to prevent fraud and acts of corruption before they occur. You will be aware that the House has already passed the new LACC Act, giving a broader mandate to the LACC to fight corruption. It is my hope that in the supreme interest of the Liberian people, the Senate will soon concur. The House has also passed the new anti-money laundering legislation, which empowers the Financial Intelligence Unit to fight illicit financial flows, such as money laundering and drugs and terrorist financing. We will spare no effort to bring Liberia within international compliance in the fight against corruption and illicit financial flows. Mr. Speaker, with your support, our administration continues to implement several reforms on the central government payroll and pension scheme. For example, we have successfully placed all government workers on a biometric ID, reduced non-contributory pension scheme from about 7,000 pensioners in 2017 to about 6,000 pensioners to date. Expanded social security coverage and increased social security contribution by 300% in some instances. The government, through the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, the Civil Service Agency, and the National Social Security and Welfare Corporation, intends to fully reform the entire process of retiring and paying retirees on time. In this regard, I am hereby admonishing all relevant entities to accelerate their work and complete the reform by the middle of this year. At the completion of this exercise, workers who retire today must receive their money the following month. Let me reiterate. At the completion of this exercise, workers who retire today must receive their money the following month. I will be looking to announce this to the nation in my 2023 annual message. Mr. Speaker, Liberia recently completed its third review under the IMF External Credit Facility. The results show strong fiscal and monetary performance. The executive director of the IMF have noted in the review that, I quote, the Liberian economy is on track to rebound strongly. Next year, following setbacks from COVID-19 pandemic. The medium-term outlook is favorable, and the authorities are committed to a steadfast implementation of their macroeconomic stabilization and structural reform program. And let me tell you one, I'm quoting. So the IMF telling you that when you hear authorities, that means the president and our team, the vice president and the whole group. So when you also say that we don't have fiscal discipline, it's not true. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this positive review from the IMF was immediately followed by a disbursement of $23.64 million to the central bank to add to the nation's reserve stock. So you can see they pay you for good governance and good fiscal policy. So our high work, right away they give us something. It's good for the country. That will reward for good governance. Madam Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President pro tempore, members of the 54th Legislature, we have remained committed to the independence and autonomy of the Central Bank of Liberia in support of economic reform for a stable economy. Although the year under review was challenging for the economy, my government was fully supportive of the policy implementation from the CBL that have kept the recovery of our economy on course. I want to say, to God be the glory for the great things He has done and continue to do for our government and for our nation, Liberia. Despite the challenges of dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, the economy grew by 3.6% from negative 3% in 2020. And growth this year is expected to be 4.7% through increased agriculture and public investment in social compact programs. In nominal value, the Liberian economy expanded by more than 300 million in 2021. Inflation was reduced to less than 6% in November 2021 from 13.1% in December 2020. We were successful in increasing the gross international reserve of our country to more than 600 million, representing more than 4 months of imports of goods and services in compliance with the ECOWAS convergence target. Mr. Speaker, in our effort to extend the visibility of the Central Bank of Liberia beyond Monrovia, the bank completed the construction of a modern cash hub in Banga, Bon County, to provide more financial services for our people outside Monrovia, which was dedicated by me last month. The bank is planning to commence the construction of an additional 4 cash hubs in other rural areas of the country that will make it easy to access financial facilities. Mr. Speaker, as part of the currency reform approved by you, the members of the 54th National Legislature, the Central Bank of Liberia brought in the first consignment of banknotes totaling Liberian dollar 4 billion out of the approved for the 8.734 billion Liberian dollars in November 2021. The second consignment is expected in January 2022. The first and the second consignment are all denominated in $100 bills, only intended to respond to the liquidity for the campaign, in campaign time. So